Welcome back to Richard Reviews. Today we've got quite a special episode. We're joined by my good friend Shane here, who's going to be telling us about his favourite movie, which is Taxi Driver. So we're going to do things a little differently. Normally we have a bite-sized video. Today we'll probably be going quite a bit longer in time, just to really, get in the details of why it's such a good film and why it's Shane's favourite movie. So I'd like to introduce Shane and let him say hello to everyone and introduce himself and tell us a bit about yourself.
How's it going? So my name is Shane. I'm a playwright from here in Pukekohe, New Zealand, and I have a background in film. Two of my degrees are in film. One of them is a Bachelor of Performing Arts from Unitec, majoring in directing and writing for screen and theatre, and then I did a Master's of Screenwriting at AUT.
Fantastic. It's quite a good resume you got there.
Oh, yeah. Got another couple of degrees as well, but they're not in film. So
no, fair enough. So you were telling me before you've been involved in the things like the 48-hour film festival. What was that like? And
48-hour films are good. Yeah, so at film school you obviously do a lot of films, but probably the most fun you have is outside of film school. You are allowed to take the equipment,
right,
and go make films. So we would make short films for short film festivals, short film competitions like Trop Fest, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously the B48 Hours Film Festival. That was always a lot of fun. Did that a few times. Once didn't go so well. We didn't even get our film finished in time.
What happened there?
Problems with editing, but no, it was great fun. I would highly recommend it to anyone.
The editing's a tough bit. Recording the
that's easy, but I think definitely worth doing just for the fun of it. A lot of shooting film just off the cuff kind of thing. Random locations, just pulling up the camera, hitting record, belting out the dialogue, running away from whoever's owns the building that you were filming in. We filmed in a laundromat and got chased by security there. It was it's good fun. I would recommend it to anyone.
So you were saying before that when we were talking before we started recording that you get given something to build here's your short film, go make it. You've got 2 days or however long to go do it. So you have to write on the fly. You have to then figure out where you're going to film it, go film it, no sleep.
That's certainly how it was when we did it. You kind of Friday evening you'd get a prompt kind of thing from how I remember it, and that first evening you'd be writing late into the night, and you have to write it in such a way that you can film it, and a lot of it you were constrained by you were constrained in the writing by location and sound, everything like that. So no,
and I guess you can't write by committee. It's got to be we're doing this, and we've got
to. That's always one of the hardest things about something like that. Someone has to take charge, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably tough. All right. So, what do you look for in a good story?
What do I look for in a good story? I like simple stories, simple to follow stories that have a strong, important arc that matters in some way to our time and culture and condition. Stories that have a really strong character arc, and there's a point to that story being told.
Yeah.
I don't like stories that are difficult to follow in terms of a complicated narrative. I think the best stories are ones you know exactly what is happening at every point, and they're very simple to follow. The complexity comes in why things happen.
Yeah. So why people make decisions they do, and
because I think choices are what makes choices are character.
Yeah,
that's
they really build the character, don't they?
Yeah, well, I think that's the fundamental building block of what a character is. Like sometimes you can have an eccentric, kind of strange person, but you can't frame a story around just a weirdo.
Yeah.
A story and like a character is someone who makes very interesting choices for complicated reasons. They're the sort of stories I gravitate towards.
I mean, characters that don't have any kind of development, their story arc is flat and they don't learn anything. They're frustrating.
They're frustrating, and also I don't think the story says much.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of,
it's all sizzle no steak.
Yeah.
We talked before, and I said the character that I find frustrating is Peter Rabbit.
Absolutely.
Because he's cocky and brash and annoying at the start of the film, and he's exactly the same at the end of the film. Just everything's moved around him, and he's not changed in any way, shape, or form. I know it's a kids' film, but it's the best example.
I think that's the only way they get away with it. Like you couldn't tell that story to an adult.
No.
Because we require much more complicated, not complicated, but like we require character arcs to really, appreciate a story.
That's right. I mean, the video I released most recently was for the 13th Warrior, and you had the central character played by Antonio Banderas. His arc is it appears he's like a playboy when he's in his home and he gets exiled, and he goes through a physical journey and quite an emotional journey at the end. And then when he's at the very end, he's making a prayer, and he could pray to be saved. He could make a prayer to someone to come and help him, but he just prays to live well in the service of other people. He's come a long way from where he was to where he finishes up.
That's I think that's essential to a really good story.
Yeah. All right. So the meat of why we're here. Why do you like Taxi Driver so much?
I think Taxi Driver is a great film, probably for two really important reasons. I think Travis Bickle he's such an interesting, complicated character. Like the choices he makes and what he wants and how that's in conflict with who he is. That's what I find so interesting about him.
Yeah.
And then what his character and his character arc and his journey and everything about his story, what that says about his time and place in America at the time that the story is being told.
Yeah.
That's what I find so interesting.
He's a very broken character. He's broken from his service. He's a veteran, and he's very broken from it.
Absolutely.
And that has quite a bearing, even though you don't see that through the film, it has quite a bearing on him throughout the film, how much that's affected him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like many young American men, he went to war optimistically, like their parents' generation who went to war and came home. They suffered through the war and came home as heroes. That wasn't the case with Vietnam soldiers.
Vietnam was very different to the Second World War.
Certainly was. And probably where it was most different, because all war is horrible in the fighting of
Absolutely.
it. But where it's probably like very different is the reception of those soldiers coming home.
Yeah.
So there was no point to their suffering.
No.
Because they came home vilified as baby killers and just villains.
That's
and
right.
so
whereas their parents came home as heroes and is regarded as the greatest generation.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah.
And so then I think where Travis is the most interesting, I find, is that he's still trying to be a hero, but he doesn't know how.
No, the system's failed him. That's for want of a better phrase.
Like the narrative of, the story he was told growing up turned out to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like he was told you be a good boy, you go to war when you're told, and you come home a hero.
Yeah.
And that turned out that's not the case. So now he's trying to fit back into a world where he doesn't know the rules anymore. He doesn't know how to be a hero, but he wants to be.
Yeah.
And so he
he does try to be, and he makes choices to be a hero, but maybe not necessarily good choices.
Yeah, and I think I find them fascinating. Given his I read them as good intentions.
Yeah.
But they're complicated by his PTSD and his growing insanity, if you want to call it that.
I think the PTSD is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even after the event when Scorsese made the film, after the Vietnamese War, you wouldn't have known what it was, not until much later in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so that's, I suppose, what I find so fascinating about the film. And I suppose in that light, I certainly read the text as a kind of like a fantasy of a character who it's like he's dreaming.
Yeah.
He's like he's having that little conversation you have with yourself in the shower of like your eventual like triumph as a human being that will redeem everything about you.
Yeah.
And this is him playing out that fantasy. And what his fantasy is so violent and angry and broken, but so optimistic at the same time. Like he's trying to be heroic.
Well,
and
he's gone into service. He's not come back the hero he wanted to be, and he's still searching for that opportunity.
Yeah.
And he finds it, and he finds it in quite a brutal manner, doesn't he?
Yeah, and in that sense, like I personally view Taxi Driver as like an incredibly optimistic story. That irrepressible drive to be a hero, that can't be crushed in us.
Yeah,
that's and I guess like I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, you can see just in your manners and how much you.
I love it in my bones. I like this person should be broken and depressed, and I think but he refuses to.
Well, yeah, he just won't go down, will he?
He won't go. Yeah. He won't go down as this broken, depressed kind of like, oh, what was me character. He's still fighting to be a hero, and I love that because I think we all want to be heroes.
Well, everyone wants to be a hero in their own story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
He's struggling to get that. So
yeah. So I guess that's why I identify with him, and that's why I like so much about him.
Fair enough. And I mean, very iconic character.
Yeah.
Very iconic scene when he's shouting to the mirror.
Oh,
and I think that's
no, absolutely.
That one of the memorable scenes of in any film, isn't it? Really.
And I don't know about you, Richard, but I think we all shaved the mohawk at one point, in our youth. So I don't know. It's all very iconic to me. Just have a lot of love for him.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you kind of answered my sixth question, which is what makes him such an iconic character and so interesting. So my next question is, Art Imitated Life with Scorsese and the attempted assassination on the president. But then Life Imitates Art with John Hinckley Jr., who in a love letter to Jodie Foster shoots the then president Ronald Reagan in the 80s. Had you heard much about that story?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Any piece of art you create, you kind of you kind of throw your truth down onto the page. Paul Schrader, I think his name's pronounced, the guy who wrote the script.
Yeah.
He did it in I think it was 2 weeks.
Wow.
Just this frenzy of creativity.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to get it out of you.
Yeah.
But then it's out there in the world, and then it's a narrative, and it's a character, and it's this piece of art that anyone can kind of form their own opinions on and develop a relationship with it, identify with it. And sometimes that's going to have positive, uplifting experiences. Obviously for me, I find it quite an uplifting film.
Yeah.
I feel it enriches my life. Someone like John Hinckley Jr., he used it as justification for doing something
you know,
quite violent.
Very much so, yeah.
And like
you were talking about Catcher in the Rye before with
Mark
John
David Chapman killing John Lennon, and like obviously there's mental health issues with both these people, and
Definitely.
I guess that's that's how probably the obsession and identification can kind of develop in problematic ways. But yeah, certainly Mark David Chapman was obsessed with Catcher in the Rye, and he saw that as justification for killing John Lennon, because in a way he thought that he was saving John Lennon.
I think he said before that once he shot him, he felt that he would end up floating into the pages of
just he thought he would shoot John Lennon, and then disappear or like disintegrate into the pages of the book that was with him.
That's
it's.
I think at that point the Jesus slid off the cracker.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. And knowing we were saying before, we were given another 20 years of John Lennon making music.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Scorsese, after the shooting with Reagan, he very nearly stopped directing.
I can imagine so. And J.D. Salinger, who wrote Catcher in the Rye, he was always a little reclusive and that kind of thing. But I think the people, because it wasn't just Mark David Chapman that took Catcher in the Rye and used that as justification for criminal acts.
Yeah.
There were other people, and I think it deeply affected him.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm never in the same position.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I think we're like we are with whatever we make and whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right, indeed. Well, I think that kind of brings us all the way through it. It's kind of quick on those facts, but it's been good. Thanks for joining us, Shane. It's been bloody good sitting down and talking to somebody about a movie they really enjoy. I mean, it's quite a positive thing sitting down with someone and talking about something that they like, and you can tell just by your body language how much you like Taxi Driver. And yeah, it's great. It's for me, it's good content to sit down with someone, talk about something you love. You've been our first person we've interviewed, and it's gone really well. So thanks so much for coming.
I appreciate it. Would love to do it again sometime.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. It's been great having you with us. If you want to watch Taxi Driver, you can find it on Apple TV. And if you like the video, please leave a like and a subscribe. Cheers.